All right, so how do I want to start this? Let's see. All right, so hey, what's going on? My name is Rudy, and this is Rudy on Mars, and welcome to my studio, my home studio here in Florida. Today I wanted to show you a little bit about my pedalboard. It's kind of my pedalboard story and how it came to be, and what I use to kind of track songs when I'm making either a production or adding guitar to a track or a mix or anything like that. So basically how my pedalboard starts is it goes from my guitar and that goes into my amp. And my amp is the HA73. That's basically like a Neve 1173 EQ channel strip. So I have that engaged. I don't have the EQ modified or anything like that. I just have it on just to give the full channel feel and a little bit of gain with the Neve kind of gain there. That's kind of the way I use to track just my raw channel. So it's for my DI. From that, I have it reamped, basically going to a Laley PISO, and the PISO is on my pedalboard, and from there it goes into my wah pedal. The wah pedal is an Exotica XW1, I believe it is called, which then goes into my tuner, which is on my pedalboard, and that's kind of where the pedalboard really starts. So my pedalboard from there is the Wazacraft TU3W tuner. And then that goes into the Cali 76. The Cali 76 is basically like an 1176 compressor. That compressor is kind of like a vocal compressor. Most people know famously for, in a lot of recordings, usually paired with like a LA2A opto compressor made by URI. So after that, it goes into my Type Metal Pro by Amp Tweaker. This is a James Brown original. It's basically like a 5150 head. Or preamp, if you will, in a box. And it's cool because it has a couple of channels there. It has a clean channel, which has a loop in it. It has a dirt channel, which has an effects loop. And then it also has a boost channel, which has its own effects loop. I don't use the two other boost loops, but in the clean channel, what I do is I have a Wampler Plexi Drive Deluxe, which is like basically a Marshall in a box. It has a bit of EQ and that Marshall tone with the gain in it. After that, I got my frustration. It's a Wampler pedal. Again, it's like a fuzz pedal that goes to kind of pair with the dirt, if you will, with the Marshall. And I have that just in a clean loop. So I switch between the Marshall sometimes, and I'll switch between the dirt of the Type Metal Pro, which is like a 5150. All that then is just like kind of like an analog chain, and then that's finally terminated at the Para EQ by Empress Effects, Para EQ Deluxe actually. That's kind of like a Baxendal or Baxall effect, I believe it's called. Kind of, you want to use that to kind of cut unwanted frequencies and kind of get your tone very clean without adding too much gain in certain frequencies and everything like that. And it also has a boost pedal at the end of that with the deluxe pedal, I believe, only. So it kind of compensates for any kind of loss you're doing there. So that's kind of like my analog chain. And then from there, I have to go into another Layla, which is the P-split. And the P-split is just another kind of way to ISO. I have basically my analog pedals separated before I get into my digital layout there. The P-split ISO is kind of like just one, I have it going just a clean line going directly into my interface. And from there I have a digital side that I'll show you later. But after that, the ISO part goes into my Helix HX effects. That's basically where I have like mostly my modulation effects. I could have extra compressors or phasers or anything like that. But really like my reverb delay, that's in there. And then it has two side chains. One I have using the Opus, which is my cab and amp sim. So that's kind of like one of my amps, if you will. And then in the other side, I have a RNC really nice compressor, which is a very old 1173, super affordable kind of basic compressor. It's unbalanced, has balance outs though, but it's a very good layered kind of clean VCA style compressor. And it adds a really nice little sweetness to the tone at the end of my chain here when I use it in the signal path that I have built in the Helix effects. I also have a side chain on it for like 100 hertz high pass filter. That way, if I wanted to play my bass on my pedalboard, or because it's reamp, if I want to use like an effects or like a keyboard or anything like that, I'm not losing any tone. I can use it basically like a real compressor without getting any kind of artifacts or distortion in it. So that's basically that main part of my pedalboard, and that then all goes stereo out into a DI, which is my Rupert Neve R&DI S stereoed into my interface. And that kind of sums up my analog side, if you will, of my pedal board. So the next side is basically the digital side. This kind of came along because of when I purchased the Opus, it came with a Genome license to have their software as well, which is like another kind of simulation amp and IR loader as well for guitar. And it's really, really good. The way I have it kind of was almost like an insert running through another interface, and I have it on a separate computer on my laptop. So that way I kind of have it at its maximum fidelity and track that as a separate amp. The Genome is really pretty good. It's a pretty good software. I have it going through from my interface with that clean channel that I have from the P-split, and then out to my SSL2 Plus, and then stereo back out into my interface as a stereo channel. So there's basically 4 channels that I have of stereo. Although what I do with the Genome, I keep it kind of like a mono signal, and then I use my Helix and analog pedals as a stereo signal to kind of give it more definition and kind of volume and everything. So if you hear it now, like I'll give you an example. This is kind of my dry signal without the effects, but it's both channels, both the Helix and the Genome. I'll give you an example. If I were to solo just the R&DI, which is basically just my Helix amp, if you will, and effects, you'll see what that sounds like. Same thing if I were to do for the Genome. So it's kind of a little bit of low end and high end, a little bit of the mid range, but all together when I play it, you know, and then I add a little bit of reverb here, and you'll see it's a stereo reverb. Get my tone actually fixed up here. I was only using one pickup, but he's using both pickups here. And as you can tell, like although it's kind of pretty much an all digital signal path or signal chain and recorded tracks, it sounds very much like an amp to me. The realism is kind of very high in the resolution and the articulation there. Because even if I change my tone of my guitar, you can kind of hear it there. And even if I were to change the pickups, it gives like a really good tone. So that's pretty cool. And then once I add, like I said, the way I'm tracking it, at least for the guitars, it's kind of my analog, or it's actually a clean signal from the 1173, the HA73, a clean signal from the Laley P-split going into my interface. And then I have the stereo Helix out from the effects and the Opus. And then I also have a stereo output kind of piggybacking off of the P-split signal to the Genome, running at its max signal rate. I think it's, but although it's tracked at 48 kilohertz when I record, it's upsampled all the way, I believe, to like 786 kilohertz, whatever the maximum rate is. Because being that it's on a separate laptop, I can kind of let it do its own thing without taking a load or a hit when I'm recording in my DAW, like I'm recording right now, actually. So, yeah, that's pretty much the whole signal path and the whole signal chain there. If I were to add my distortion pedal to give you an example of how the depth of it and it sounds, how it picks up and how it takes up to the, or how it responds rather to the amps of the Opus and the Genome. This is the Marshall in the box. If I were to go to the 5150, like the amp tweaker. And the cool thing with it, like I said, this is kind of cool because although the Genome is kind of being like a mono signal in the middle, have the stereo signal, or using the Helix as a stereo signal, you kind of see the difference here. So once I do, like, say, for example, this is a stereo delay, but it's a step delay. But if I were to do like a stereo delay with a kind of like a panning effect, you kind of really hear the depth of the guitar and the effect of using both amps here. if you add that with like some distortion, you can get pretty gnarly too. Find the hiss there. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me know what you think. If you think this is pretty cool of a setup. I don't know if anybody has anything similar like that, but I found this to be kind of a really cool way of getting just a really big guitar sound and really filling the void of like not having analog, amps or tube amps or solid state amps, and kind of trying to track them, with a box or miking them up, because it's just a bedroom here. So it's just kind of like, making a mountain out of a mound, if you will. So yeah, thanks for watching. Peace.